Hi all, this is another Grischuk game which he was playing black again, and he seemed to play the whole game with a string of natural looking moves against Gata Kamsky, the US #1. So Kamsky 2705, Grischuk 2760. So knight f3 was played, and white's content with a quiet opening, so he's not testing Grischuk's French defence or anything. So he just plays g3 now. Okay, so we might have a transposition into the English opening if white later plays c4. So g6, bishop g2, both sides fianchettoing, and now c4. So it looks like a fairly standard English opening position. Knight c6, knight c3, so both sides eyeing these two key squares in the centre. Now the move d6, white castles, and now this is the first point of interest for me at least, playing black with this kind of setup. I think often I've been playing knight f6, but actually Grischuk chooses e6 here. So he's not too concerned about using up another move to put the knight on e7. It does mean the f pawn is ready to advance in one go later. White plays d3. Maybe a more ambitious plan worth considering is e3 to try and play d4, but d3 was played anyway. Knight ge7, another move bishop g5, which tempts a weakness from black, but maybe this weakness is actually useful for black to play anyway. The move h6. White doesn't really want to give up the dark squared bishop. Okay, he's created h6 as a target now. He just retreats back the bishop, but it seems in the game that it was proven useful to play g5 later. So now b6 was actually played. So just actually preparing a double fianchetto. So both these bishops are going to be cutting across the centre like this. Whoops, cancel that back up. Press the backup button, please ignore. a3, now bishop b7. So white's playing for a seemingly typical English opening plan of b4, b5, but it doesn't seem to have that much effect in this game. You know, maybe there's the idea of b4 and b takes c, but even so it seems a bit you know, pussyfooting around with soft kind of ambitions. Queen d7, and now white really commits to this queenside attack in inverted commas with queen a4. Okay, there's a kind of pin generated which might be useful in the future, but against this actually Grischuk just plays rook d8, so he's making his position more tactically safe, just protecting his queen. So when he castles, you know, the knight's still free to move. So b4, and now a curious, well, another sort of safety move actually, getting the bishop out of the line of any b takes c's, just to see if b takes c is possible maybe in the future. He just plays this move, bishop a8. So it's all, I would say all of black's play so far up to move 13 is really just natural looking. Okay, so now we have rook fd1, black castles. Now the move e3. Okay, so what is white playing at? Maybe with rook d1 and e3, it looks as though maybe d4's on the cards. Maybe bishop e1 and d4, that could be on the cards. But black has a very natural looking move to discourage white trying to play for d4. And he just plays the move g5. It doesn't seem, again, anything really that special. It just seems black's positions his pieces just very nicely, even from a designer perspective. Just the look of the position seems really nice with these bishops like this you know, and the rooks just, you know, this rook here in the centre, the knight's kind of ready maybe to go to g6, just the control of the d4 squares and the dark squares in general. This just looks like a beautiful position for black. And white's, you know, he seems to just weaken his king now with this next move, and encourage again a move which is just useful for black to play anyway. He plays h4, okay, and Grischuk just plays g4, so he's putting more pressure basically on the d4 square. The knight retreats humbly back, and now we have knight g6. So maybe with the ideas of knight e5 could be useful later, or even knight h4s if white's not careful. So finally white carries on with the aggression inverted commas on the queen side with knight b5. So is there something going on here with a7 or this pin or c6? It seems quite mysteriously passive, white, in this game, his play, but the key point actually is revealed on the very next move of knight b5. It's not really attacking anything concrete, but it does mean c3 is vacated, so bishop c3, maybe try and provoke black to move his pawns forward, to try and exchange off this bishop and try and exploit the resulting weaknesses, maybe opening up the centre later with d4. Maybe that was what's on white's mind. But this next move f5 just seems like the train's ready to run now with these pawns against the white king. So bishop c3. Okay, now here is a move which requires a little bit of courage, I guess, from a positional perspective. If black wants to play for f4, it would be nice to play e5, but he would be weakening the d5 square. But he does this anyway. So bishop d5 check. The king moves, and now knight g2. And it's here actually. Okay, now this I guess can be considered you know, a very clever technical move for a change. I mean, black's play so far resembles basically a plan I'm frequently using, this pawn avalanche plan in blitz and bullet chess. So you just, now I think this move required some calculation. This knight Ge7 move. Okay, so he's moving the knight back. Paradoxically, in fact, it didn't really require some calculation because the bishop's just been stopped from retreating back, so he's just winning light square bishop. Actually, I was looking at the move score earlier in here. I assumed it was this knight incorrectly, but this move again is another just riskless logical move. Just going to weaken the white king position by getting rid of that light square bishop. Or force a further concession now. So e4, and black continues naturally with f4, and so he's got a really nice strong bind on this d4 square. Incredible, really, how easy it seems for black's attack to just continue here. So white plays king h2, Grischuk just takes, and now just plays rook f3. So he's preparing to double up rooks and dominate the f file, but also d3 is under fire. Knight d4 might be useful. White finally carries on the queen side with b takes c. After d takes, now we have rook f1. Alright, so what's going on here? Well, Grischuk just plays bishop b7 now, so maybe he's going to play a bishop b7, either supports a6 or bishop c8 potentially. If there's ever any rook f3s, g takes, bishop c8 will be very useful on this h3 square. So that's a couple of moves, a couple of points to that move. Bishop b7, nice move. Bishop a1, and now the rooks naturally double. And now here is where black takes on f3, basically giving black access to that h3 square. So rook takes f3. I don't really know what to suggest for white. He seems in such an incredibly passive position. It's like some sort of weird Nimzovich game where the opponent's left with no counterplay after not seriously sort of tactically blundering, but just having a lifeless position. So rook takes f3, g takes, and now knight e3. So the bishop's ready to retreat back now to just hit that sensitive h3 square. So white's not only weak in his position, given black a huge clamp on d4, but his king position's just there as a sitting target now. So black energetically plays the move h5, trying to tear open that diagonal. Okay, now finally we see a sharp kind of move from white. Knight takes a7. So knight takes a7. Well, this is it turns out to be a piece sacrifice, basically. I don't know what white is doing about defending his king here. So maybe he wants to get some pawns for the piece. So knight takes a7. The queen's come off, and now rook takes b6. So if we take stock here, the knight sack was for 2 pawns. Let's count pawns. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 pawns for the knight. But what concrete targets are there in the black position? And black's also just getting another pawn anyway back immediately with bishop takes g4. So just a pawn for a piece. So black's a piece up basically for a pawn. 4 minor pieces and the rook against 3 minor pieces and the rook, and still black has a lot of trump cards like this d4 control. So he plays knight ac6. After king g3, knight d4. White's had enough. He's threatened now with knight e2 check. Here's an example continuation. Say rook f2, knight e2 check. Now say if the king moved, so forget rook e2 for the moment. Say the king moved, just rook f4. I mean, white's a piece up white's a piece down anyway. It's a bit of a disaster. But this is an example continuation where black could go in for an assault, actually, just sacking a bishop if he wanted. He's getting a really vicious attack, and his pawn's also very dangerous in these variations. So that's just an example. So after knight d4, white resigned. So it just left an incredible impression on me playing through this game, looking at some interesting Grischuk games. So this with the black side, it seems very, very natural play, as though we could almost, play in such a way ourselves, just fianchettoing both bishops. We could almost simulate this ourselves. Surely it doesn't look anything technically advanced here, but the opening scene was set because white played kind of very quietly in the opening, so maybe this is a natural and strong reaction. Just fianchetto both bishops and just play for a kingside kind of pawn avalanche later, collecting key squares in the center, notably the d4 square. So here is where white's position started to be compromised even further, actually, because knight g2 meant, just by retreating the knight, to have the option of taking that bishop, but not actually executing that option, just playing to increase the avalanche with f4, and just use actually the f file, and it just seems incredible, really, the ease that black's attack just played itself, causing this doubling of rooks. I mean, what would white be doing here in this position? In any case, maybe after doubling rooks, black was threatening rook g3, rook, a rook sack like that, potentially with some preparation. So maybe this is what worried white into weakening his king position further. So on this diagonal, so h3 now very weak, and now this desperate seeming the pointless piece sack, just maybe to desperately get some sort of shred of counterplay, but it doesn't exist. Weird game. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.